the father of the atomic bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer. During the ongoings of the infamous Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer was the brains and director of the Los Alamos laboratory located in New Mexico. By the time the atomic project was launched, he was already considered one of the most exceptional theoretical physicists in the country. Oppenheimer's work delved deeply into the exploratory science that brought life to the atomic bomb. 2 years after General Leslie Groves appointed Oppenheimer to weapons development, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb, Little Boy, on the city of Hiroshima. Oppenheimer wasn't always a renowned physicist, but he did always have a knack for it. Born on April 22, 1904, Oppenheimer grew up in the Ethical Culture Society, which was an outgrowth of American Reform Judaism. The progressive society that his family was a part of emphasized subjects such as social justice, civic responsibility, and secular humanism. Dr. Felix Adler was the founder of this society and the Ethical Culture School, where in 1911 Oppenheimer was enrolled. At a young age, Oppenheimer studied minerals, physics, and chemistry in a manner that was far beyond his years. The boy's correspondence with the New York Mineralogical Club was so advanced and so enthralling that the heads of the society invited him to lecture. Not once did they realize Robert was merely 12 years of age. In 1921, Robert graduated as valedictorian of his class, but before he was able to enroll at Harvard, he became fatally ill. For the next several months, Oppenheimer was bedridden with a nasty case of dysentery. Nearing the curve of his recovery, Robert's parents arranged for him to spend the summer of 1922 at a haven in New Mexico. It was here that he developed a great love for the backcountry desert. 25 miles northeast of Santa Fe sat a dude ranch. Robert spent the summer with high school teacher and mentor Herbert Smith. Together, they would ride out into the wilderness for sometimes 6 days before returning home. By the time September 1922 rolled around, Oppenheimer's health had been restored and he was ready to take on Harvard. Within 3 years' time, Robert graduated, excelling in a wide variety of subjects in such a short amount of time. While he had majored in chemistry, Robert learned that his true passion lay within the study of physics. Instead of settling with his new degree in chemistry, Robert decided to continue his schooling. In 1925, he began his graduate work in physics at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, England. J.J. Thomson, a physicist who had been awarded the 1906 Nobel Prize for his work in detecting the electron, agreed to mentor Oppenheimer. Further into his studies with Thomas, Robert came to realize that his talent was theoretical physics, not experimental. Upon his realization, Oppenheimer accepted an invitation from Max Born, director of the Institute of Theoretical Physics. For the next 2 years, Robert studied under Born at the University of Göttingen in Germany. In 1926, Robert received his doctorate, and as luck would have it, Oppenheimer was studying abroad during a pivotal time in the world as European physicists were developing the groundbreaking theory of what we now know as quantum mechanics. This would soon become a fundamental theory in physics as it provided a description of nature's physical properties in the realm of atoms and subatomic particles. During his time in Germany, Oppenheimer published several notable contributions to the newly developed study of quantum theory. Most famously, he published a paper on the so-called Born-Oppenheimer approximation, a theory that separates nuclear motion from electronic motion in the mathematical treatment of molecules. In 1927, Robert returned to Harvard to study mathematical physics as a National Research Council Fellow. Then, in early 1928, he traveled to study at the California Institute of Technology. Months following his venture to California, Robert accepted an assistant professorship in physics at the University of California, Berkeley. For 13 years, Oppenheimer maintained a joint position with the two schools and commuted between them. Many of his colleagues and students commuted with him for their studies. Prior to the war, Oppenheimer became credited with being the founding father of the American equivalent of theoretical physics. His research pertained to astrophysics, nuclear physics, spectroscopy, and quantum field theory. He He made incredible contributions to the theory of cosmic ray showers and contributed work that would eventually lead to the description of quantum tunneling. In the 1930s, many of Oppenheimer's papers suggested the existence of what we now know today as black holes. By the age of 26, Oppenheimer had excelled beyond his years and provided a solid ground for later scientists to pivot from. To say he was smart would nearly be an insult, for Oppenheimer was much more than that. Even in the height of the world's largest and deadliest conflicts, Oppenheimer continued to break ground in theoretical science that would have otherwise been unattainable. When World War II began, Oppenheimer quickly became involved in the war effort. In 1939, Robert Oppenheimer officially began his work to develop the atomic bomb. Most of the facilities at Lawrence's radiation laboratory at Berkeley were well underway in their research and development. Oppenheimer was invited to take over the work on neutron calculations. After nearly 3 years of working in the hectic and condensed Berkeley laboratory, General Leslie Groves met Oppenheimer. In June of 1942, he was appointed as the scientific director of the Manhattan Project. Under the watchful eye of Robert Oppenheimer, the laboratories at Los Alamos were constructed, but he would need a team of minds to fill the labs. Oppenheimer brought the greatest minds in physics on the Allied side to New Mexico, where they began the strenuous work of developing the world's first atomic bomb. Nearly 3,000 people were employed at Los Alamos, each arising to tackle whatever theoretical or mechanical problem that made its way to the surface. The joint work of these incredible scientists resulted in the first nuclear explosion at Alamogordo on July 16, 1945. The first atomic bomb in history was named Trinity. 11 days later, Little Boy was dropped on the city of Hiroshima. Then, 3 days after the first atomic bomb made landfall, Fat Man fell upon Nagasaki. An estimated 110,000 lives were lost in Japan on those days. Despite the horrors that will forever be reflected in stone, experts estimate that over 300,000 lives would have been lost should the Allies had attempted storming the beaches of Japan. President Harry Truman's goal wasn't to wipe Japan from the face of the earth. His goal, as well as many others, was to end the seemingly never-ending war. On September 2, 1945, World War II officially concluded. Oppenheimer continued to prevail in the scientific community in a post-war era. In 1947, he was appointed chairman of the General Advisory Committee to the Atomic Energy Commission. In this role, he voiced a strong opposition toward the development of a hydrogen bomb. During the height of the U.S. anti-communist movement, Oppenheimer and his family were accused of sympathizing with communists, and his security clearance and position were revoked. The scientific community, save a few names, were shocked by the decision of the Atomic Energy Commission. Nearly a decade later, President Lyndon B. Johnson attempted to rectify the injustices made against him by honoring Oppenheimer with the Atomic Energy Commission's illustrious Enrico Fermi Award. In 1967, Oppenheimer passed away from throat cancer. He was a father to 2 incredibly brilliant children, something that was obviously handed down to them. To them, he was a hard-working man with knowledge that would forever outlast him. To the scientific community, however, Oppenheimer was the father of the atomic bomb.